Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster here on the live stream. Wednesday, June 1st, first day of June. Goodness, it's a hot one out here in California. 2022 is the year. And yeah, about 12:18 p.m. local time here along the West Coast. Some movement at 1.3 earthquake striking over here around the Alaska region. We did see some pretty large-scale movement overnight around the China area, including a 5.9. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here from the USGS map as we look at the last 24 hours of earthquake activity, 2.5 and above. Look at that swarm in Texas. We'll get to that here in a second. But some movement kicking up here in China, very shallow, strong earthquake striking China early this morning, at least our time early this morning, about 10 hours ago or so, at about 10 kilometers. So very shallow earthquake, 5.9 in this area of China. Looking at, well, the reports doesn't show a whole lot of did you feel it reports, but it looks like the pager was up there in the damage range. The estimated economic losses there getting in the yellow and orange area for the pagers here. This is a percentage of whatnot, the losses or possible fatalities. I haven't heard anything far as any deaths go, but historically, a lot of earthquake activity in this region. If you look at the past movement since about 1900 or so, there's been some large ones in this area, so no stranger to earthquakes in this area of China. Definitely sees quite a bit of pressure here from the dynamics of the westward movement here, and also you got this area, this low plate here, moving towards the northeast. So a lot of squeezing, a lot of raising of the mountains over time, creating those dynamic conditions there for earthquake activity, and lots of them. Did have a 5.2 here in the Myanmar area. That one down a little bit further south than that 5.9, and it did strike just a short time ago. Looks like not right after, but definitely following that 5.9. So still getting a little bit of back building of pressure, it seems, in this area. I know the Java Trench had seen a little bit of activity yesterday or the day before, but today that looks pretty quiet here. But I think that's an area to watch, considering this movement up north now. Gotta watch this area pretty closely. Afghanistan, and it had a 2.7. That was from last night, yesterday's earthquake, and some earthquake activity outside of Iran. That an older earthquake notification from last night as well. Recent activity here around Fiji, Tonga, not a whole lot going on. I believe, let me check the EMSC model here real quick. I'm pretty certain that I seen a earthquake come into the New Zealand area down here. Let me zoom into the map here. This is EMSC model. This map will show some of the earthquake activity. It looks like they had a couple threes kicking off there. I could have swore I had a notification come in that there was something stronger than that in this area, but EMSC just showing a couple of threes around the New Zealand area itself. And of course, typical threes and twos throughout the major subduction zones, Middle America Trench, Peru-Chile Trench, and over here throughout the Indonesia area, all showing continued activity, but nothing above the 4.0 threshold here for this area today. Looking at the South America region, got to turn off the earthquake bells. Hopefully those didn't come on. There we go. Got a little activity into the Peru-Chile Trench like we had seen. A couple fours kicking off here as well. Majority of that from looks like this morning's time frame. Couple fours kicking off there. Also the Puerto Rico Trench region, seeing a little heightened activity up here north of the Puerto Rico area. And gotta watch that. They're pretty close around the Mona Seamount, up here around the Santo Domingo area. All seeing some activity. Let's go ahead and check out what's going on out here in Texas. We're getting some, getting a pretty good swarm of earthquakes out here. Actually had a large 4.6 earthquake strike. That one just earlier this morning. That I would say, I don't think we've seen one this big out here. It has been relatively quiet. Remember watching these if you've been watching my updates over the past couple days, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas area has been relatively quiet. Only one or two earthquakes per day, and we had been seeing quite a bit of swarming going on. So it looks like we broke that that little quiet spell overnight and this morning. So 4.3, a 4.6, a whole bunch of 3s and 2s in the mix as well. This 4.6, had it been around a populated region, would have been felt by quite a few people out there. But out there in the desert, that area of Texas, not a whole lot going on out there. It was felt into the Carlsbad, New Mexico area, just south of Roswell. But again, population density very minimal. But I'm sure people live out there. No doubt they did feel it. I'm sure they felt the 4.3 as well. So we got two 4-pointers out there in this area. I want to bring down the all magnitudes here. And look, 4.6 up here in this mix, 4.3 over here. So we got two distinct locations here spread out from those 4-pointers. Two little separate swarming events going on. Looks like about maybe 30 miles or so from each other. This is northwest of Pecos, Texas area. Delaware Mountain Range. There is some fault systems up here, obviously. But this is kind of, this 4.6 kind of struck in an area where the swarming normally, well, let's go back the last 30 days and see here what we got. Yeah, it's kind of at the end of it. The swarming area that we kind of watch is kind of in a line right here, just northwest of Pecos, Texas. And this 4.6 that struck is just up to the north, a little bit further north and outside of our typical swarm area. Where the 4.3 struck here this morning, it's kind of right at the eastern edge. So not for sure exactly what's going on there. I do want to check out and see if this is the largest quake here. We're going to go 4.5 and above. Let's go back. Let's go back in time. I'm just going to put 1900 just for the heck of it, and then we're going to draw on the map out here around the beautiful state of Texas. Not a big fan of that area. It's just a lot of desert out there. But I am going to draw a box and see if we can get the that area. I may have to go over more here. Let me see where we're at. We'll go right about here to right about there, right? That looks good. And we'll see what we got for earthquake activity. I'm pretty certain that that may be the largest one. Wow. Okay, it looks like there was a 5-pointer last year within that region. And also a 4.8 around that swarming area as well, the eastern side. But either way, that's kind of a larger quake there in terms of the swarming that we normally see. It's normally a bunch of 2s and some low-grade 3s and occasional upper 3s. So for a 4.6 to pop up there, as they're getting up there in magnitudes, there's only been 5 of them, including today's quake there in this area of Texas. And last year, back in March, had a 5-pointer. So yeah, a little activity ramping up here, folks, in this area of Texas. What it's all pointing to, it's hard to say. I know there is. I'm pretty certain there is some natural, well, not, I shouldn't say natural, but injection wells out here, pumping operations. That's kind of what you're seeing here, lined up alongside the road. These dirt roads, they lead out there to those operations, and a lot of it does have to do with those operations. But this 4.6 that struck out here, see what we got underneath that. I'm not seeing any pumping operations around here. I know there's some specific faults that run through here, so that could be contributed fault activity. But also at the same time, we do have a mix of a lot of these stations out here. These they got little ponds out there, injection wells. Here's this one, 4.6 struck right smack dab on one. That's not a farmhouse out there either. Those are You guessed it, those oil pumping operations out there in the desert. So a thing to watch, I think. Obviously, we're seeing increased movement here along this area of the North American plate. I think a thing that we need to watch for, considering it looks like most of the activity here is confined to the southwest region, we need to watch Oklahoma and the inland areas right now for some potential large-scale movement as well, possibly a 4, as we've seen down here in Texas today. Because right now in Oklahoma and Kansas, where if we'll go back the last 30 days and check here, definitely some earthquake activity, right? Make sure this may be okay. That's the last 30 days. Let me double check that again. Hold on. I forgot I was using the search feature. 30 days of activity. Yeah, there we go. Okay. The swarming has completely come to a stop up here throughout the Oklahoma and the Kansas area. Might be an area to watch pretty closely considering this movement today, folks, for sure. Midland area, Big Spring, Odessa, Texas. Seen some activity over the last 30 days, but man, it's hard to say exactly what's going on out here. But I think it has contributed a lot to the those operations that are going on out there. 4.2 in the Gulf of California earlier as well. If you notice, Southern California definitely lighten up today, along with this increased movement there in Texas. Getting some activity out here around the Salton Sea. Look at that, right smack dab under the Salton Sea. I don't even know if there's still water out there. Well, there was last year when I went out there. Was not a pleasant experience, let me tell you. I came home with a huge headache after being out there all day looking for these mud pots out in the fields. A couple small earthquakes here in the vicinity of the Salton Sea. Of course, got to remember what's right next to it. That's the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. That is the guy, or however you want, the thing that is going to produce a 8-pointer one day. It's been well over 300 years since the last major rupture of the southern part of the San Andreas Fault. So got to watch this area pretty closely when we see earthquake activity literally within miles of it here on the Pacific side of the plate boundary. So gotta watch that baby pretty closely. A little swarming also down here around the border. The Imperial Fault all kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm pointing at. Gotta watch this Southern California area pretty closely. Got a little query blast trying to maybe ignite the couple fault systems out there. Who knows? Looks like it's up in the mountains around the El Cerrito area. 1.6. I don't think that's going to trigger the San Andreas Fault, but let's hope we don't see any query blasts up and down that region here. That could do it, because it's been building up. It's kind of wound up like a spring, folks. Let me tell you, more than a spring now. 2.5 in the Desert Hot Springs area. This is on the North American side of this plate boundary. So a lot of squeezing, a lot of adjustment going on down here around the sleeping giant that no one wants to wake up. Low activity north and south of the Garlock Fault shear zone as well. This area did see a 3.1. That was late last night around the Ridgecrest area. Aside from that, most of it microquake activity in this area of California. Into northern Cal, not a whole lot popping right now. Some movement outside of Redding, just off the Battle Creek Fault zone. Lassen Peak sits here within this area. Nothing to report there at that volcano currently. Scattered activity throughout Nevada and to the Pacific Northwest. Some minor earthquake activity. Oak Ridge seeing a 1.1. And some activity up throughout the Washington area. Got a 2.1 up there as well. Not a whole lot going on throughout the eastern part of the country. Of course, if you remember, we did see a little bit of swarming take place here in the New Madrid zone a couple days ago. Today, last night I should say, Chaplin, Kentucky, a 2.4. Not often do we get movement up there in Kentucky, right? But it is very close to the New Madrid zone. Let's go back to the terrain here. U.S. hazards, somewhat close, but this whole area is subject to possible earthquake activity. Not a huge risk here for the Kentucky area, but there is, due to the fault systems and whatnot, the plate dynamics over the years, that it does still sit within the area that could see earthquake activity on occasion, but not a huge seismic risk. But if there was a huge 8-pointer on here in the New Madrid zone, definitely Kentucky will have quite a bit of damage as well. Let's see what else we got. Alaska region seeing some movement up into the northern part. Let's check out Hawaii, see what we got going on here. A little bit quieter today, it looks like. We've got about 18 earthquakes or so of all magnitudes. Nothing specifically large, not even one earthquake over the 2.5 threshold. All microquake activity. No major changes to report there at the volcanoes in Hawaii. Far as movement around the Yellowstone National Park goes, not a whole lot to report. Seen a little earthquake over here just within the last hour or so along the eastern section of the park. This is in that area that kind of hard to tell exactly and get the location and magnitude of where these quakes are occurring, but they are showing up here around the eastern section of the park. We see it showing up here on the promontory and also Lake Butte as well at the same time frame as the Parker Peak signature on that graph. Aside from that, not a whole lot of earthquake activity to report. Last night's tremor activity was pretty minimal, 67 epicenters of tremor. Pretty dramatic drop in the count of tremors there over the last, well, compared to the last week or so. Mount St. Helens movement, we know there's some earthquake activity up there. Nothing being reported here by the USGS or the PNSN network. We'll check out the recorded data that's provided to you, me, anyone of the public that monitors or that wants to monitor the seismic activity here. And a little bit of activity, it looks like overnight. There's an S wave right there. See the little squiggle or the wavy lines? That's got to be from that 5.9 overnight. And that comes up to about the timestamp when that happened. A couple small earthquakes. These right here, I'm not for sure what those are. I know we've been seeing them. I don't know if they're I don't think they're avalanches, but they look kind of like out of the norm. We've seen them yesterday as well. That's something to keep an eye on pretty closely. There is obviously some earthquake activity overnight. And yesterday's page, there's those odd readings. I'm not for sure what it is. They all look consistent somewhat in terms of it looks actually kind of odd. There's a little quake prior to whatever this is. It's like an earthquake, and then there's a little movement. So I'm not for sure if these are maybe hard to say, rock slides. I don't know. We'll look into that a little bit more later. See if we can't figure that out. But far as distinct earthquake activity, yes, there was some yesterday, and there is some today. So not a whole lot going on in solar weather. We'll just look at that real quick. Green across the board. We're starting to see a little bit of uptrend right here. Notice the C flare threats kind of going up. It has moved up to a 50% chance, 10% chance of an M flare. This is all coming from, let's see which sunspot that is. Got to be, well, this one here kind of looks like a rapidly new development right here. Got some further activity to the east here, eastern side of the sun. Hard to say exactly where these are, where this threat's coming from. Doesn't look like there's a huge threat. 3026 appears to be the culprit. 3027 as well. That's kind of given the elevated threat. 3026 and 3027. Well, where are they at? Is that still an old? That's kind of odd. That is the latest data. Okay, a little on the weird side. Maybe they just haven't named them yet or updated maps, but 3026 northwestern. Huh. All right. Well, Yeah, we'll have to watch that one and some further development. Either way, it looks like it's still pretty calm. I don't see any major flaring threat at the moment, but just a little bit of heightened solar flare activity on the X-ray flux. No major storming to report, but of course we will check back on that and see if anything's been updated. Looks like speed, density, everything has gone downhill as far as any type of major solar wind event. So yeah, all right guys, I'm gonna jump out of here. Gonna be hot today, close to 100 again here in California, where gas prices are sitting at it seems like they go up every single day, folks. I'm not even joking. At our cheapest gas station here, it's $5.80 a gallon, but at Chevron and the brand name stores, brand name stations, they are $6.39. I want to say $6.39, $6.49, approaching $7 a gallon for the Supreme gas, you know, and the higher octane fuel. So man, it's getting crazy, folks. But then again, got to remember, what goes up must come down, right? Eventually there will be a crash, just a matter of when. So just got to hold out until then, hopefully, and then things should drop back down. We'll see how that goes. All right, guys, I'm bouncing out of here. Have a good day. We'll see you tonight with the update video, unless something major happens. Either way, stay safe out there. A lot of pressure out there along the North American plate, obviously. We will catch you guys a little bit later on. Have a safe day.